So we'll go back to Purusha Sukta, mantra number 7. So just to give the connection, we have been studying that the Purusha Sukta is a mental yajna that is being performed by all the devatas. So how can we say that this is mental yajna? Because there are different kinds of yajnas. In those different kind of yajnas, whenever you talk about a ritual and whenever you talk about a yajna, you should always have materials. So first thing anybody will ask is what are the things we should get. So dravya or materials are required to do any puja, any worship, any yajna. So when the creation itself has not taken place, when there is nothing available, so what material will you bring from where? And therefore this yajna has to be interpreted as manasa yajna only. Manasa yajna of whom? Where the Purusha Sukta talks about devatas, but if the devatas are also not created yet, so who does the manasa yajna? So that question has got to be resolved. So the devatas are, for the first or adi yajna, this devatas are actually the various potentiality of the Paramapurusha only. So that potentiality which has been energized, which has to start the creative process, and that Shakti and the conglomeration of the Shaktis is called devatas. Kanti or Jyotiman, Kantimati Shakti, that is the Shakti which is full of shining, and that is the potentiality that we are talking about, and therefore this is called as Adi Yajna. And then Adi Yajna, whatever was initiated in the very beginning, is always the most sacred and the most powerful of the yajnas. This is also validated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse number 28. Dravya yajnas tapo yajnaha yoga yajnas tatha pare swadhyaya jnana yajnascha yatayaha samshita vrataha. So we have a formula what is known as purva purvebhyo. Whatever is said earlier is more powerful than what is being told now. So it is, as I have many times mentioned, the teaching methodology is always top down. So the most important thing is always told first. So the greatest yajna is the manasa yajna. In this are jnana yajna. This jnana yajna is the highest. And this we have also seen here and there, though not structurally studied, in the Vidusho Yajna of the Mahanarayana Upanishad. At the end of the Mahanarayana Upanishad, in the last Anuvaka, we talk about Tasyaivam Vidusho Yajnasyatma Yajamana Shraddha Patni Shariram Idmam. So in this Yajna, which is performed by the Vidvans, what is that Yajna? Atma Yajamanaha. Your jiva itself is the yajamana. Your body itself is the yajamana. Body, mind, complex is the yajamana. Shraddha Patni, your dedication is the wife. Sharira Midhvam, the body is the bundle of the 27 sticks which we are going to talk today. Sharira Midhvam Uro Vedihi, your chest itself is the altar. Lomani Barhihi, so all the darbas are our own hairs. Like that we imagine that we are offering ourselves in this yajna performed by a vidvamsa. So this that is also a jnana yajna only. That means even my hair is something that will be participating in the yajna. So that to that extent one dedicates himself or herself to performing the jnana yajna. So this is the connection to what we have studied so far. Now we get into Saptasyasan Paridhayaha Tres Sapta Samidha Kritaha Devaya Dyajnantan Vanaha Abadhan Purusham Pashum. So if this poetry is reformatted into prose format, what happens? Asya sapta paridhayaha asan. Asya, for this yajna, sapta paridhayaha, 7 boundaries. Paridhi means boundary. 7 boundaries asan. What happened? Then 3 sapta samidaha kritaha. 3 sapta means 3 times 7. 21. Samidaha kritaha. And then that is samits were formed. Deva yajnam tanvanaha. Devaha, the gods. Tanvanaha became ready to perform yajnam. To perform the yajna. So, first thing they had to do was to make sure that the resources for the yajna is available. So, what they did was Purusham Pashum Abadhan. They tied the primordial Purusha as a sacrificial offering. So, when we say this, what do we conjure up? We say that, okay, they caught hold of this Paramapurusha and then tied him with a rope. That's the picture you will get. But we will see how to parse this mantra. So, in this Adi Yajna, the performers are Devatas. They are called as the Dedipyamana Shaktayaha. That means the shining, capable powers of Paramatma or Parabrahman. So, in this sequence of creation, the Shakti or the power is the potentiality of the ability to create, the competence to create. The ability and the competence occurs first. That is why all projects are formed in the mind only. Before you put anything on paper or in any Visio or whatever format, before that, what is the first thing that you do? You actually conceptualize. So, like that, the primordial Purusha also conceptualized what ability is required to create and what competence need to be incorporated in the creative process. This Shakti also is garnered so that it can manifest as Karya, which means there is also a timing issue. For example, a 3-month-old child may have the potentiality to get a Nobel Prize. Isn't it? It may eventually get a Nobel Prize. But right now it is only a potentiality. Therefore, Kala is also important. And therefore, Karya, for the sake of Karya, the raw material that was required, this raw material is precondition for any Karya. So, without Dravya or without materials, what Karya is possible? If you don't have grocery, how can you cook? No doubt that you have all the ability to cook, all the competence to cook, but then you need the grocery. So, therefore, first the list is being now created. Therefore, this creative activity of the Devas, ability of the Shakti of the Paramapurusha. Therefore, the viewpoint that Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, that means Karya, Karana, everything is Brahman only, is supported here by saying that the potentiality of the Purusha only is manifesting as the Devatas, and Abadhan, as soon as they are manifested, what does it mean? As Pashu, indicating that the Devas binded their mind with the Purusha. So, this Purusha is being tied. With what rope? Their own mind. So, this is a very important point for us also, because if we want to really, truly, deeply understand Vedanta, we have to take the mind as a rope and then tie it around a concept. This is why we also say that you ought to have sattva guna, you have got to completely minimize tamo guna, and then minimize rajo guna, and then use sattva guna for wrapping around a subtle concept. Therefore, guna is also called as rope. One of the translations of the word guna is rope. So not only characteristic, but it is also a rope. So they bound. That means to contemplate on any concept, you have got to first of all bind that concept with your buddhi. So this is what they did. Then they needed the boundaries for this yajna. So what are this boundary? The Veda uses the word paridhi. Paridhayaha, paridhi. Pari means all around. Dhi means placed. It is kept. It is placed all around. So placed all around what? All around is yajna. Therefore, let us say you are doing manasa yajna. For manasa yajna, your mind itself is the altar. And that has to have boundary. Isn't it? We have to create a boundary. So how many material, how many kinds of materials are required to put the boundary? So the scripture says, Saptasyasan paridhayaha. It was 7. Now you can also imagine in the regular physical yajna that you do, dravya yajna you do, in dravya yajna also you have a physical yajna kunda. Then what you do is you take that yajna kunda, take the darbha or the twigs, the appropriate twigs, and then you keep 2 each on 3 sides of the yajna kunda except east. So it's not kept on all the 4 sides. But you might have noticed me keeping on all the 4 sides. So that means were I violating the rule? The answer is because when you do a yajna early in the morning as the sun rises, then you need only 3. Or if you are using what is known as Uttaravedi, in many of the more complicated yajnas, there will be 5 altars. In those 5 altars, in one of the altars is called Uttaravedi. There you need to have only 2 on the 3 sides, south, east, south, west and north. On the east, you don't keep anything. So 2 plus 2 plus 2, 6. So in the east, the sun is the one who acts as the paridhi. So what is the role of these boundaries, these sticks we keep, or the darbha we keep on all the 4 sides, on all the 3 and plus side, one side? It is called as the rakshogna or rakshogna. So when you keep these twigs, when you keep these summits, when you keep these darbhas, then all negative forces will be stopped at that boundary. And from the east, Surya, who is Bhargodeva, he himself acts as a protection from the east. So that is the spirit. So the authority for that is in the Taittiriya Samhita itself says, Na purastat paridadhati, na purastat paridadhati. This paridhi is not kept in the east. Adityo hi eva udyan. Surya himself here rises. Purastat rakshagamsi apahanti. In the east, he actually destroys all the Rakshasas. This is in the Dvitiya Kanda of the Yajurveda. Someday, when we read this, the Samhita Patha, we will come across this. Whenever we study the Samhita systematically, I will introduce this mantra to you in greater detail. So thus, Paridhi is the boundary on each one of them. So it became 7. Hence, Saptasyasan Paridhayaha. Then the mantra uses Samit. Samidhayaha. What is the meaning of Samit? Samit means burns brightly. Simple translation of Samit is that which burns brightly. It is made up of 9 varieties of sacred twigs. Only 9 plants or herbs qualify for becoming the samit. For example, the durva, that is durva grass, then the grass which can grow in your yard with 3 strands, you use in Vinayaka Puja, Ganapati Puja, that is a sacred one. It has to have 3 strands. Or the darbha grass itself, the ashwatha, palasha, and then there is also khadira, which is acacia branch. Even that is called a sacred one. And negrodha, which is banyan. So there are 9 different kinds. Audumbara, yeah. Then there is also there is a mantra for that. What are all the 9? So anyway, now you also make the ladle, which you use. You would have seen that I bring a ladle with me, and that ladle is made up of shami, a particular kind of tree which we use in Vijayadashmi. Because they say Shami Shamayate Papam. In Mahabharata there is a beautiful verse. Shami Shamayate Papam Shami Shatru Vinashini Arjunasya Dhanurdhari Ramasya Priyadarshini. There is a saying, because this Shami tree is also called as Agni Garbha. It has got fire in its belly. Yeah. So in correct. You write this in Dasara, actually Vijayadashmi day. Yeah. Yeah. Pandavas hung there all their weapons there, and when Rama enters Lanka, the Shami Vriksha is the first one that is why Ramasya Priyadarshini. So that tree is supposed to have told him, all will be well for you, you will get Sita. So that is why Shami is considered. And then there is also another story. I don't know that I have told you this story also or not. There was a great sage called Varatantu, and this Varatantu had a student called Kautsa. This Kautsa goes to this teacher Varatantu and prostrates before him and says, Adihi Bhagavo Brahmed, Adihi Bhagava, please teach me. Then no questions are asked. Any worthy teacher, if somebody says, please teach me, you just teach. That's it. So 14 Vidyas were taught. This I think I told this story in Venkateshwara temple. So he taught the 14 Vidyasthanas, all the major Vidyasthanas he taught. It took 14 years. And then the graduation time came, and then Varatantu said, you have learnt everything, you can go ahead. Go take a family and settle down, teach others. Then he asked, I want to give you Guru Dakshina. So the teacher said, you don't have to give, because you can't afford it. If you have money, it is okay. If you have wealth, it's okay, you can give the Guru Dakshina. But you don't have anything. You were living with me all these years. What can you give? So you don't have to give me anything. Then he says, no, I have to give you something. So the argument went on by saying, I cannot accept any instruction from you or anybody without giving Guru Dakshina. Because that is the dharma. The dharma is wherever you learn anything from that, you have to give a compensation. You have, in some form, you have not done that. No, I have to give. So the Guru gets a little irritated and said, okay, are you ready to give me what I want? And the student says, yes. I have taught you 14 Vidyasthanas. I want 140 million gold coins. That's my Guru Dakshina. He has nothing. So who could have that kind of money? Only the king can have that kind of money. So the king at that time who was ruling was Raghu Maharaja. So he goes to Ayodhya, and then he wants to get the alms. He said, Bhavati Bhikshandi. Bhavan Bhikshan Dadatu, to be correct. So Raghu Maharaja says, I have nothing to give you. Because just now I have performed a yajna in which I had taken a sankalpa that I will give away everything. Ushanhavai Vajasravasa Sarva Veda Samdadau. Remember Kathopanishad, where he was going to give away everything. So Raghu Maharaja had given everything that belongs to him to in charity, he had nothing. Now this young Brahmana has come and then he has asked for there is no way he can give anything. There is no way he can send him back either. So Raghu had participated in a lot of wars against the demons with the devas. So he goes to Indra and then he says, I am in a predicament. This person has come. He needs 140 million pieces of gold. So please, how can you help me? That's no big deal. And then he just calls Kubera, the treasurer, and says, give him that money. And what Kubera does is, oh, that's fine. And then he goes to the treasury and pushes a whole mountain of gold coins and it will fall down into the yard of Raghu where there was a Shami Vriksha. And all this money falls on the Shami Vriksha. And then Raghu says, take all that. Then Kautsa says, I can't take all that. I need exactly 140 million and not $1, one less, one more. He starts counting. And then he takes only whatever his guru had asked and leaves the rest. Raghu says, I can't take this because this was invoked for you. Then Kautsa says, no, I can't take this. I only asked you for 140. So what should we do with this money? Then at that point of time, the Kulaguru Vasishtha says, you give it away to your needy prajas. From then, we have the tradition, on the Vijayadashmi day, you go to the Shami Vriksha, you worship and take a leaf of that Shami Vriksha and give to all the people in the assembly. So this is the background story of why you give the Shami leaves in that assembly. Anyway, that is a little aside. It has nothing to do with this mantra. So Tris Saptaha Samidah Kritaha, the 7 by 3, 21. This is called Idma. So quite a lot of things I have to speak about this Idma, which we will take up in the next class.